We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Beneath the Surface. The diesel engine's rhythmic rumble filled the cab of Jericho Jax, Kincaid's 18-wheeler, as he navigated the empty Montana highway. His calloused hands gripped the steering wheel with practiced ease, each mile adding to the thousands he'd logged since trading in his tactical gear for a trucker's license 5 years ago. A notification chimed from his phone, mounted on the dashboard. His daughter Daisy's face lit up the screen. She'd sent a video of herself performing in her school play. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly as he watched the 8-year-old deliver her lines with confidence. She was the light of his life, the reason he'd walked away from his former identity as the Ghost, one of the most lethal operatives in Black Ops history. "That's my girl," he muttered, his voice rough from hours of silence. The solitude of long-haul drives suited him, gave him time to maintain the careful walls between his past and present. No one in Oakhaven knew about the missions, the kills, the perfectly executed operations that had earned him his code name. Here, he was just another trucker trying to provide for his family. His phone buzzed again, Eleanor this time. His wife's text was typical of her. "The Henderson's charity gala is this weekend. Don't forget to pick up your tux from the cleaners." Jax's jaw tightened. These social obligations were Eleanor's world, not his. She thrived on the attention, the endless rotation of parties and fundraisers that came with being Oakhaven's golden daughter. The contrast between them couldn't be starker. She lived for the spotlight while he preferred the shadows. "Roger that," he texted back, his military habits bleeding through even in casual communication. The radio crackled with updates about road conditions ahead. Jax adjusted his route mentally, calculating arrival times and fuel stops. This precision, this constant awareness, it wasn't just professional dedication. It was ingrained from years of operations where the smallest detail could mean life or death. His truck CB radio came to life. "Breaker 19, this is Big Mike. Got a situation up ahead at mile marker 147, Jax. Roadworks got traffic backed up about a mile. Copy that, Big Mike." "Much obliged." Jax's response was automatic, but his mind was already processing alternate routes. He'd mapped every back road in Montana during his first year of driving, another habit from his former life. As he downshifted to take the upcoming exit, memories of his training surfaced unbidden. The weight of a rifle in his hands, the tension before a breach, the perfect stillness required for a long-range shot. He pushed them away, focusing on the road ahead. His satellite phone chirped, the secure line he'd kept despite his retirement. Only 3 people had this number, all from his past life. He let it ring twice before answering. "Secure," he stated flatly. "Ghost." The voice belonged to Marcus Chun, his former handler. "Just checking in. There's chatter about some new players in your area. Russian outfit, moving in from the coast." Jax's expression didn't change, but his grip on the wheel tightened. "Appreciate the heads up. Still retired. Copy that. Stay frosty." The line went dead. The warning stirred something in Jax's gut, an instinct he'd learned to trust. He'd noticed small changes in Oakhaven lately. New faces at Eleanor's parties, whispered conversations that stopped when he approached. His wife had been different too, more distracted, checking her phone constantly. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia, the hypervigilance that never quite left you after years in the field. But now, his truck's computer beeped, indicating it was time for a mandatory rest break. Jax pulled into a truck stop, going through the motions of logging his hours and securing his cargo. As he walked into the diner, he noticed a black SUV with tinted windows parked in the far corner of the lot. The same model he'd seen outside his house last week. The waitress approached his booth with coffee. "The usual, hon?" "Thanks, Marie." He positioned himself to keep both exits in view, another habit he couldn't shake. While waiting for his food, Jax pulled up the feed from his home security cameras on his tablet. Eleanor was in the kitchen, talking animatedly on her phone. He activated the directional microphone he'd installed months ago. Just a precaution, he'd told himself then. "Can't keep stalling," Eleanor was saying, her voice tight with frustration. "We need to move soon. The window won't stay open forever." The voice on the other end was too muffled to make out, But Eleanor's response was clear. He suspects nothing. Just stick to the plan. Jax's face remained impassive as he closed the feed, but inside, something shifted. The instincts he'd suppressed for 5 years roared back to life. His wife was plotting something, and whatever it was, she wasn't working alone. The rest of his route passed in a blur of calculated moves and countermoves. He made his scheduled deliveries while his mind worked through scenarios and contingencies. By the time he pulled into his driveway that evening, he had formulated the beginnings of a plan. Eleanor greeted him with her usual kiss on the cheek. "How was the road?" "Same as always," he replied, noting the slight tremor in her hands as she poured him a drink. "Quiet. Daddy." Daisy came running down the stairs, launching herself into his arms. He caught her easily, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. This was what he'd left his old life for. This was what he would protect at any cost. "Tell me about your play, princess," he said, settling onto the couch with her while Eleanor disappeared into her home office, phone already in hand. As Daisy chatted excitedly about her role, Jax's trained ear picked up fragments of Eleanor's conversation through the wall. "Needs to look natural. Insurance policy is in place. 2 million split 3 ways. His daughter's voice brought him back. "Are you listening, Daddy?" "Always, sweetheart." He smiled, but his mind was already shifting gears, preparing for what needed to be done. Someone was threatening his family, his peace. They would learn why he'd earned the name Ghost, and why even hardened operators still spoke of him in whispers. Later that night, after Daisy was asleep, Jack sat in his home office, surrounded by monitors showing various security feeds. Eleanor had gone to bed early, claiming a headache. He pulled up her phone records. A number in particular caught his attention, called multiple times over the past month. A quick trace showed it registered to a shell company. Amateur, he thought. They had no idea who they were dealing with. His satellite phone vibrated. Another text from Chun. "Package delivered. Storage unit 227. Usual protocol." Jax waited until 2 a.m. before driving to the storage facility on the outskirts of town. Unit 227 contained a black duffel bag with everything he needed to become the Ghost again. Weapons, surveillance equipment, documents. Chun had always known this day might come. As he loaded the bag into his truck, a memory surfaced of his last mission. The target had begged for mercy, offered millions to spare his life. Jax had put a bullet in his head without hesitation. That's who he was, who he'd have to be again. His phone lit up with a text from Eleanor. "Don't forget the gala this weekend. Love you." Jax deleted the message without responding. The woman he'd married, the mother of his child, had made a fatal mistake. She'd forgotten, or never known, what he was capable of. The Ghost was back, and this time, the mission was personal. Chapter 2. The Lover's Game. Cyrus Thorne adjusted his Italian silk tie in the mirror of his penthouse suite, admiring the reflection of success staring back at him. At 45, he'd mastered the art of appearing wealthy without flaunting it. Understated Rolex, bespoke suits that whispered rather than shouted money. It was this refined image that had first caught Eleanor Kincaid's attention at the Oakhaven Country Club 6 months ago. His phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Jay leaving for 3-day route tomorrow. Meet at usual place?" A smile played across his features as he typed back. "Counting the hours, darling." The usual place was a rundown cabin deep in the woods outside town, a property he'd purchased through one of his shell companies. Eleanor had balked at first, preferring the luxury of high-end hotels, but Cyrus had convinced her of the need for discretion. What she didn't know was that every moment of their tryst was recorded, every confession and pillow talk carefully archived. Leverage in case things went south. And they always went south eventually. His other phone, the burner, chimed with a message from Dmitry Volkov. "Payment overdue. Interest accumulating. Meeting required." Cyrus's jaw clenched. The Russians were getting impatient, and with good reason. He'd borrowed heavily to maintain his facade of wealth, betting everything on his biggest score yet, Eleanor Kincaid and her husband's fortune. Schedule set for next week. "Proceed as discussed," he replied, keeping it vague. No need to mention the plan to eliminate Jax Kincaid and split his life insurance payout. The less said over text, the better. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Thorne?" Mrs. Kincaid is here to see you. Send her up. He quickly closed the banking app, showing his mounting debts. Eleanor swept into his office like she owned it, designer heels clicking against marble floors. We need to talk about the timeline. Good morning to you too, darling. He moved to kiss her, but she stepped back. This isn't a social call. Jax is acting strange lately. Different. Like he's watching me. Cyrus poured them both a drink. He's a trucker, Eleanor. What could he possibly suspect? You don't know him like I do. She paced the room, agitation clear in every movement. There's something about him sometimes, moments when he's not just the simple man I married. You're being paranoid. Cyrus handed her a glass of bourbon. Everything's proceeding exactly as planned. The Russians are in position. The insurance policy is bulletproof. And in 2 weeks, you'll be a very wealthy widow. Eleanor took a long sip. And us? After it's done? Paris, like we discussed. Or anywhere else you desire. He stepped closer, running a finger along her jaw. The world will be our playground. She leaned into his touch, but her eyes remained troubled. I saw him in his office last night, reviewing security footage. He's installed new cameras. This gave Cyrus pause. Recently, within the last month, he said it was because of break-ins in the neighborhood, but she shook her head. Sometimes I catch him watching me when he thinks I'm not looking. Not like a husband watches a wife. Like he's studying a target. Listen to yourself. Cyrus laughed, but something cold settled in his stomach. Your husband is a truck driver. The most exciting thing in his life is choosing which route to take to Denver. Maybe. Eleanor finished her drink. But I did some digging. Called some contacts from my father's law firm. There's nothing on Jax before he moved to Oak Haven. No records, no history. It's like he didn't exist. Cyrus moved to his computer, pulling up the background check he'd run when he'd first targeted Eleanor. He was in the military, special forces, honorable discharge. It's all here. Show me the actual documents. He scrolled through the file, frowning. What he'd taken for thorough documentation now seemed suspiciously thin. Service records that provided no specific details, commendations with crucial information redacted. I should go. Eleanor stood abruptly. Jax will be home soon. We'll discuss this more at the cabin tomorrow. After she left, Cyrus made a call to his contact in military intelligence. I need everything you can find on Jericho Kincaid. And I mean everything. That'll cost extra, the contact replied. Money's no object. He ended the call and walked to the window, staring out at the Montana landscape. Something about this wasn't sitting right. He'd run hundreds of cons over the years, separated dozens of wealthy women from their fortunes. This should have been simple. A bored trophy wife, a distant husband, $2 million in life insurance right for the taking. So, why did he feel like he was being watched? His burner phone buzzed again. Volkov. Meeting. Tonight. Non-negotiable. Cyrus cursed under his breath. The Russian hadn't been part of the original plan. Just a necessary evil when Eleanor's spending habits had exceeded his available funds. Now he was in deep to the mob, and they were getting anxious about their return on investment. He texted back coordinates for a meeting spot, then opened his safe and removed a Glock 19. Better safe than sorry. The meeting place was a deserted parking lot behind an abandoned mall. Volkov arrived in a black Mercedes, flanked by 2 guards built like brick walls. Mr. Thorne? Volkov's accent was thick, his smile anything but friendly. We grow concerned about our investment. Everything's on schedule, Cyrus assured him. 2 weeks max. Scheduled changes. Tonight. Cyrus felt sweat bead on his forehead. That's not possible. The insurance policy has a suicide clause. It needs to look like an accident, and that takes planning. Volkov stepped closer. You owe us $3 million, Mr. Thorne. Plus interest. My associates grow impatient. 3 weeks, Cyrus countered. Give me 3 weeks, and you'll have $5 million instead of 3. The Russian studied him for a long moment. 2 weeks. Then we do things our way. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Mr. Thorne? We looked into this husband you plan to eliminate. You should do the same. Might find it illuminating. Cyrus drove home in a daze, his mind racing. He'd assumed Jax Kincaid was a simple mark, a nobody he could eliminate without consequence. But Eleanor's concerns and Volkov's cryptic warning suggested otherwise. His phone rang as contact from military intelligence. "You need to pull out," the contact said without preamble. "Whatever you're planning with Kincaid, drop it." "What did you find?" "Nothing. And I mean nothing. No records, no history, no trace. It's like someone went through and systematically No, it isn't. Not for certain agencies. Not for certain operators." The contact paused. "Look, I can't tell you more. Just walk away. Some ghosts are better left alone." The line went dead, leaving Cyrus staring at his phone in growing horror. What had he gotten himself into? His regular phone chimed with a text from Eleanor. Jay acting strange again. Found him in the garage at 3 a.m. Said he was working on his truck, but nothing was wrong with it. "We need to move faster." Cyrus didn't respond. He was too busy pulling up everything he had on Jax Kincaid, looking for something, anything he might have missed. The more he dug, the more questions emerged. How had a simple trucker afforded a state-of-the-art security system? Why did he always seem to know when he was being watched? And most troubling of all, why did none of his military contacts want to talk about him? A new text from Eleanor. "Are you there? We need to talk. It's important." Cyrus ignored it, focused on his computer screen. He'd found something, a heavily redacted mission report from 10 years ago. Most of it was blacked out, but one phrase caught his eye. Operative designated ghost successfully eliminated target. His blood ran cold as pieces started falling into place. The way Jax moved, his attention to detail, the growing sense that they weren't the hunters in this game, but the prey. "Oh shit," he whispered. "What have we done?" Chapter 3. Seeds of Conflict. Jax sat in his darkened home office, multiple monitors casting a blue glow across his face. The security feed showed Eleanor in the kitchen. Phone pressed to her ear as she paced back and forth. He'd upgraded the system's audio capabilities last week. Now every word came through with crystal clarity. "I don't care what you think," Eleanor hissed into the phone. "The accounts are empty, and the bank is asking questions. You promised me this would be simple." Jax's fingers flew across the keyboard, tracing the call. A burner phone, registered to a dead address in Helena. Amateur hour. His own secure phone vibrated. Another update from Chun. "Russian activity increasing in your sector. Volkov's people making moves." The name triggered a memory. Dmitry Volkov, a ghost from his past. 5 years ago, in a warehouse in Kiev, Jax had put 2 rounds in Volkov's chest. The body was never found. Now his organization was here, in his backyard. A new window popped up on his center monitor. Eleanor's text messages, intercepted in real time. "Meeting tonight. Usual place. We need to discuss the Russian problem." The message was to Cyrus Thorne. Jax pulled up Thorne's financials. The man projected wealth, but his accounts told a different story. Massive debts, multiple loans from shell companies that all traced back to the Russian mob. The pieces were falling into place. His wife and her lover were desperate, drowning in debt. And they'd found a solution. His $2 million life insurance policy. Eleanor's voice drifted up from the kitchen. "No, I haven't found the documents yet. I've searched his office twice, but there's nothing. It's like his past doesn't exist on paper." Jax allowed himself a small smile. Of course there were no documents. The ghost didn't leave paper trails. A notification flashed, motion sensor triggered in the driveway. The cameras showed a black SUV pulling up. Cyrus Thorne stepped out, straightening his expensive suit. Eleanor opened the door before he could knock. "Are you insane? Coming here? We need to talk. Now." Cyrus pushed past her into the house. Jax switched to the kitchen camera, increasing the audio gain. "The Russians are getting impatient," Cyrus said, running a hand through his hair. "They want their money. That's your problem, not mine." Eleanor crossed her arms. "I told you not to involve them. I didn't have a choice. Your spending was out of control. The Russians were the only ones who would loan me enough to cover it." "Lower your voice." Eleanor glanced around nervously. "Daisy's upstairs. Your husband's life insurance would solve everything." Cyrus continued, quieter now. $2 million split 3 ways. Everyone's happy. Except Jax, Eleanor said dryly. "He's a truck driver. It'll look like an accident on a dark road. Happens all the time." Jax's hands clenched into fists, but his face remained impassive. In his former life, he'd eliminated targets for less. But this required a different approach. He needed to understand the full scope of their plan before he acted. His satellite phone buzzed, another message from Chun. Asset in place at coordinates sent. Package waiting. The package would be surveillance equipment, top-of-the-line stuff not available to civilians. Chun had always known Jax might need to become the ghost again. A small sound at his office door made him turn. Daisy stood there in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Daddy?" I heard voices. Jax quickly switched off the monitors. "Just work stuff, princess. Can't sleep?" She shook her head, dark curls bouncing. "Will you read me a story?" "Of course." He scooped her up, breathing in her innocent scent. This was why he'd left his old life. To give her something pure, untouched by violence. Now his wife and her lover were threatening that. They'd regret it. He carried Daisy back to her room, tucking her in with practiced care. "Which story tonight?" "The one about the princess who saves herself," she said sleepily. As he read, his trained ear picked up the front door closing, Cyrus leaving. Eleanor's heels clicked on the stairs shortly after. "Everything okay?" she asked from the doorway, voice honey-sweet. "Just fine," Jax replied, not looking up from the book. Daisy had trouble sleeping. "You're such a good father." She came closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. He noticed the slight tremor in her fingers, the fear she was trying to hide. "Good. She should be afraid." Later, after both Eleanor and Daisy were asleep, Jax drove to the coordinates Chun had sent. The surveillance equipment was exactly what he needed: directional microphones, thermal cameras, motion sensors. He spent the rest of the night setting up observation posts around the cabin where Eleanor met Cyrus. By dawn, every approach was covered. Every conversation would be recorded. His phone chimed with his next delivery route. 3 days on the road. Perfect cover for what needed to be done. He called Chun one last time. "I need everything you have on Volkov's organization. Current structure, operations, weak points." "Already compiling it," Chun replied. "You sure you want to go down this road?" Jax thought of Eleanor and Cyrus plotting his death, of the Russians they'd involved in their scheme. Most of all, he thought of Daisy, innocent and pure. "They brought this on themselves," he said quietly. "Time to remind them who they're dealing with. Copy that, ghost." Assets standing by. Jax ended the call and headed home. Eleanor would be waking up soon, ready to play her role as the loving wife. He'd play along, for now. But the seeds of conflict had been planted, and soon they would bear bitter fruit. His enemies would learn why even hardened operators spoke of the ghost in whispers. The game was on. Chapter 4. Exposing the Web. The orange glow of dawn crept across Jax's computer screens as he reviewed the surveillance footage from the past week. His truck sat idle in the driveway. He'd called in a maintenance delay to his dispatcher. The time for playing passive observer was over. "You're sure about this?" Chen's voice crackled through his secure line. "Once you start, there's no going back." "They crossed the line first," Jax replied, his voice cold as he typed commands into his terminal. "Send the files." Encrypted documents began flooding his screen. Financial records, phone logs, surveillance photos. Each piece meticulously gathered over months of patient observation. He'd watched Eleanor and Cyrus dig their own graves, and now it was time to push them in. His first target was Cyrus's business empire. A few keystrokes sent anonymous tips to the SEC about irregular trading patterns. Another batch of files went to Cyrus's biggest investors, revealing his connections to the Russian mob. His phone buzzed, Eleanor calling. Jax let it ring twice before answering. "Where are you?" she demanded. "You were supposed to be on the road." "Truck problems," he replied flatly. "Should be fixed by tonight." "Well, hurry up. The Henderson's charity gala is this weekend and—" "I'll be there." He hung up mid-sentence, something he'd never done before. A small crack in his facade, letting her glimpse what was coming. His secure phone lit up with an incoming message from one of his old contacts in the financial sector. Tips received. SEC launching investigation into Thorn Industries within the hour. Jax allowed himself a small smile as he pulled up the feed from his surveillance camera at Cyrus's office. Right on schedule, men in suits were walking through the lobby, badges out. His next move targeted the Russians. An anonymous package to the FBI detailed Volkov's loan shark operation, complete with names, dates, and dollar amounts. All courtesy of Eleanor's sloppy record-keeping. Boss! His warehouse manager's voice came through the intercom. Got some guys here asking about Mrs. Kincaid's signature on those equipment loans. Send them up. Jack switched feeds to the warehouse security cameras. 2 men in cheap suits, bank investigators, right on schedule. He greeted them with practiced confusion, playing the role of the concerned husband perfectly. My wife signed for what loans? They spread documents across his desk, equipment financing agreements, personal guarantees, all bearing Eleanor's forged signature of his name. The investigators exchanged glances as Jax's expression darkened with seemingly genuine shock. I'll need copies of everything, he said quietly, and I want to press charges. After they left, he received another text from his financial contact. Thorn Industries stock down 30% on news of SEC probe. Russian creditors calling in loans. Jax picked up his secure phone. Chun, is the package ready at the cabin? Affirmative. Full surveillance setup, motion sensors, audio recording. Place is wired tight. Good. They'll run there when it starts falling apart. I want everything on tape. He pulled up the feed from his home security system. Eleanor was pacing in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. What do you mean frozen, she was saying. That's my personal account. Another screen showed Cyrus in his office, face red as he shouted at someone off camera. I don't care what the SEC says. Nothing leaves this building. Jax's personal phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Banking error. Need to discuss urgently. He didn't respond. Instead, he activated the next phase. Emails to Eleanor's social circle revealing her mounting debts and desperate schemes. The carefully crafted image she'd built was about to shatter. His warehouse intercom crackled again. Boss? Got some FBI agents here. Send them up. Jax closed the surveillance feeds and pulled up shipping manifests instead. Time to play the cooperative businessman. The agents were professional, direct. They asked about his relationship with Cyrus Thorn, his knowledge of Russian investors. Jax gave them just enough to seem helpful while pointing them firmly toward his wife and her lover. I have to ask, one agent said as they were leaving. The evidence package we received was incredibly detailed. Almost like someone with military intelligence training put it together. Jax kept his face neutral. I'm just a trucker trying to run an honest business. After they left, he called Chin again. Status on Volkov? Getting desperate. His people are looking for Thorn. It's only a matter of time before they find him. Make sure they do. Jax pulled up satellite imagery of the cabin. But not before I'm done with him. His computer pinged with an alert. Eleanor's car was moving, headed toward the cabin. Right where he wanted her. The pieces were falling into place. His enemies were about to learn why the ghost was feared in shadows few civilians ever glimpsed. His personal phone lit up with another text from Eleanor. Please call me. It's important. Jax deleted it without responding. The time for words was over. A final check of his monitors showed Cyrus barricaded in his office, Eleanor speeding toward the cabin, and FBI agents entering Volkov's legitimate businesses with warrants in hand. The web was tightening. Soon his prey would start to struggle. And then, his secure phone buzzed Chin again. Ghost Satcom picked up Russian radio traffic. Wetwork team incoming, ETA 6 hours. They're hunting Thorn. Let them come. Jack stood, checking his weapons with practiced efficiency. But they'll find I got to him first. The hunt was on, and the ghost was back in his element. His enemies had brought this on themselves, choosing the wrong man to betray. Now, they would learn exactly why that was a fatal mistake. Chapter 5, The Price of Betrayal. The cabin security feed showed Eleanor pacing frantically, phone pressed to her ear. Jax watched from his mobile command center, parked half a mile away in the dense Montana woods. This isn't happening, she was saying, voice cracking. Everything's frozen, accounts, credit cards, even my trust fund. Calm down, Cyrus's voice replied through the speaker. We knew this might happen. That's why we have contingency plans. Contingency plans? Eleanor laughed bitterly. You mean the ones falling apart right now? The SEC is crawling through your office. The Russians want their money, and my husband. She paused. Something's wrong with Jax. He's different. He's a trucker, Cyrus snapped. Focus on what matters. The life insurance policy is worthless if we can't make it look like an accident. Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. And now I can't even access my own money to pay the Russians. Jax's secure phone vibrated. Ghost, Chin's voice was urgent. Russian wetwork team just grabbed one of Thorne's lieutenants. They're moving faster than expected. Location? Industrial district. Old warehouse on 5th. Jax checked his weapons again. Maintain surveillance. Let me know if they move on the cabin. Copy that. But Ghost, they're not being subtle anymore. This could get messy. That's the plan. Jax ended the call and switched back to the cabin feed. Eleanor was still arguing with Cyrus. We need to meet. Now. Are you insane? Cyrus's voice was strained. The FBI is watching my building. Then come to the cabin. We need to figure this out. Silence filled the line before Cyrus responded. Fine. Give me an hour. Jax allowed himself a small smile. The prey was gathering exactly where he wanted them. His personal phone lit up with a text from Eleanor. Where are you? Please come home. We need to talk. He deleted it without responding. The time for talking had passed the moment she'd plotted his death. The cabin's perimeter sensors pinged. Movement on the access road. Jax switched feeds to see Cyrus's Mercedes approaching, driving fast and erratic. Through the high-resolution cameras, he watched their reunion in the cabin's main room. Eleanor rushed to embrace Cyrus, but he pushed her away. This is your fault, he snarled. Your reckless spending, your demands for more money. My fault? Eleanor's voice rose. Who borrowed millions from the Russian mob? Who promised me we'd be rich once Jax was dead? Lower your voice. Cyrus glanced around nervously. We don't know if what? Eleanor laughed hysterically. If my simple trucker husband somehow figured it out? He could barely operate his phone. Cyrus. Jax's hand tightened on his rifle, but his face remained impassive. Let them underestimate him. It would make their fall that much harder. His secure phone buzzed again, Shun. Ghost, Russian team moving out. They found Thorne's location. How long? 20 minutes, maybe less. Jax checked his watch. Time to move. He activated the cabin's interior speakers, a modification he'd made weeks ago. His voice filled the cabin, cold and precise. You should have done better research. Eleanor screamed. Cyrus drew a pistol, spinning wildly. You see, Jax continued through the speakers. A simple trucker wouldn't have access to military-grade surveillance equipment. Wouldn't have contacts in federal law enforcement. Wouldn't know how to dismantle a criminal enterprise piece by piece. Jax. Eleanor's voice trembled. What is this? This is consequences. His tone was conversational, almost friendly. For the plotting, the lies, the hired killers. But mostly for thinking you could betray me and live to enjoy it. Cyrus fired 3 rounds into the speakers, shattering them. Feel better? Jax's voice came from different speakers. You're going to need that ammunition soon. The Russians are coming, Cyrus. They know where you are. Know how you lost their money. Know about the SEC investigation that's going to freeze what's left. You son of a bitch, Cyrus whispered. No, Jax replied calmly. Just a ghost. One you should have left alone. His surveillance feeds showed the Russian team approaching through the woods. 8 men, heavily armed. Professionals. You have a choice, he told Cyrus and Eleanor. Try to run, the Russians will catch you. Try to fight, you'll lose. Or what? Eleanor demanded. Or confess. To everything. The plotting, the theft, the murder conspiracy. I have a prosecutor ready to take your call. Full cooperation in exchange for protective custody. Cyrus laughed wildly. You expect us to trust you? After this? Trust that I want you to suffer, Jax replied. Death is too quick. I want you to live long, miserable lives knowing you failed. Knowing you chose the wrong man to betray. The Russian team was closing in. 3 minutes at most. Time's up, Jax announced. Choose. Eleanor broke first. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands. I'll do it. I'll confess. Eleanor, don't. Cyrus raised his pistol toward her. The rifle shot seemed to come from nowhere, blasting the weapon from his hand in a spray of blood and bone. That was your last mistake. Jax's voice was ice. Eleanor, make the call. Cyrus, the Russians can have what's left of you. He switched off the speakers as Eleanor dialed with trembling fingers. Through his scope, he watched Cyrus cradle his ruined hand, face contorted with pain and fury. Right on schedule, the Russians breached the cabin's perimeter. Jack settled in to watch through his cameras as justice, brutal, unforgiving justice, took its course. The ghost's vengeance was only beginning. Chapter 6: The Reckoning. The Russian tactical team moved, surrounding the cabin in a standard infiltration pattern. Through his surveillance feeds, Jax watched them prepare to breach, just as his prepositioned cameras recorded Eleanor's hysterical confession to the prosecutor. "It was all my idea," she sobbed into her phone. "The life insurance, the Russians, everything. I convinced Cyrus to help me kill my husband." Cyrus lunged for her, rage distorting his features. "Shut up." The cabin's doors burst inward before he could reach her. The Russians flowed in with mechanical efficiency, weapons trained. "Mr. Thorne," their leader spoke with a thick accent. "Mr. Volkov sends his regards." Cyrus backed away, holding up his uninjured hand. "Wait, I can explain." "No explanation needed." The Russians smiled coldly. "You lost our money. Now we take compensation." Eleanor screamed as they grabbed Cyrus, but the team's leader silenced her with a sharp gesture. "Mrs. Kincaid, our business is not with you. Yet." Jax's voice filled the cabin again. "The lady has diplomatic immunity, comrade. She's cooperating with federal authorities." The Russian's eyes narrowed. "Ghost, I wondered if you were involved." "Hello, Victor. Still running Volkov's errands? After you killed him in Kiev, someone had to maintain order." Victor signaled his men to secure Cyrus. "We have no quarrel with you, Ghost. Give us Thorne, we disappear. Take him. But remember, the woman is under my protection now. Cross that line, and Kiev will look like a training exercise." Victor nodded sharply. "Understood. Come, Mr. Thorne. We have much to discuss." Cyrus struggled as they dragged him toward the door. "Eleanor, tell them it wasn't my fault." But Eleanor was still talking to the prosecutor, confessing years of financial fraud and murder conspiracy between sobs. Jack switched his view to the exterior cameras, watching the Russians load a bound and struggling Cyrus into their vehicles. Victor paused at the last car. "Ghost, a professional courtesy. Volkov's son runs the organization now. He remembers Kiev. Then he should remember to stay out of my territory." Victor smiled thinly. "I will convey your message. Do svidaniya, Ghost." The vehicles pulled away, leaving Eleanor alone in the cabin, still pouring out her confession. "Federal agents are en route," Jax informed her through the speakers. "Don't do anything stupid." She looked up, tears streaking her makeup. "Why like this, Jax? Why not just kill us?" "Because death is too easy." His voice was devoid of emotion. "I want you to live with what you've done. To wake up every morning in a cell remembering how you failed." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No, you're sorry you got caught." Jax's tone could have frozen hell. "The mother of my child plotted my murder. The woman I trusted tried to have me killed for money. There's no forgiveness for that." Her shoulders slumped in defeat. "What about Daisy? You lost the right to ask about her the moment you chose money over her father's life." Sirens wailed in the distance. FBI and tactical teams approaching. "Goodbye, Eleanor." Jax's voice was final. "Enjoy federal prison." He killed the cabin's power as the first FBI vehicles arrived. Through his scope, he watched them take her into custody, reading her rights as she continued to sob out her confession. His secure phone buzzed. "Chun, Ghost." Russian team just crossed the county line, headed for their private airfield. And Cyrus? Looking pretty rough. They're taking him to have a chat with young Volkov. Jax nodded slightly. "Make sure our friends in the FSB know about the flight plan. I want Volkov's entire operation exposed." "Already done." "Ghost." Chun paused. "You okay?" "I'm fine." And he was. The rage that had driven him was gone, replaced by cold satisfaction. The Ghost is going back into retirement. For real this time. Copy that. Chun out. Jax began breaking down his surveillance equipment with practiced efficiency. Eleanor would spend decades in federal prison. Cyrus would wish for death long before Volkov's son granted it. The Russians would be too busy dealing with FSB raids to threaten his territory again. His phone lit up with a text from Boone. "Daisy's safe at my place. She's asking for you." Jax typed back, "On my way. 1 hour." He performed a final sweep of his surveillance position, erasing all traces of his presence. The ghost's work was done. Now it was time to be a father again. The drive to Boone's remote ranch took 40 minutes. Jax used the time to process everything. The betrayal, the revenge, the cold satisfaction of justice served. He protected his daughter and eliminated threats to her future. That's what mattered. Boone met him at the door, 6.5 feet of solid muscle with a gentle smile. "She's sleeping. Had her practice some self-defense moves to tire her out." "Thanks, brother." Jax clasped his friend's massive hand. "For everything. Anytime." Boone's expression turned serious. "Eleanor? In custody. Singing like a bird to federal prosecutors. Cyrus? Having an educational conversation with the Russians about paying his debts." Boone nodded slowly. "And you?" "I'm good." Jax meant it. The ghost did what needed doing. "Now, I just want to be Daisy's father." "Speaking of which," Boone grinned, "someone's not as asleep as we thought." Daisy stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy." Jax knelt, opening his arms. She ran into them, burying her face in his chest. This was worth everything he'd done. "Can we go home?" she asked. "Not tonight, princess." He stroked her hair. "We're having a sleepover at Uncle Boone's." "That okay?" She nodded against his chest. "Is Mommy coming?" "No, sweetheart." Jax kept his voice gentle. Mommy had to go away for a while." "Because she was mean?" Jax exchanged looks with Boone. How much had she understood? "Yes," he said finally. "Because she was mean. But you don't have to worry about that. Daddy's here, and I'm not going anywhere. Promise?" "Promise." He held her tight, breathing in her innocent scent. "Want to show me what Uncle Boone taught you?" She brightened immediately. "He showed me how to break a hold and run away." "Did he now?" Jax raised an eyebrow at his friend, who shrugged. "Start him young," Boone said. "Better to have it and not need it." Jax watched as Daisy demonstrated her moves, her face serious with concentration. She was strong, like her father. She'd survive this, grow stronger from it. His secure phone buzzed one last time. "Chun. Ghost. It's done." FSB raided Volkov's organization. Eleanor's confession is ironclad. Cyrus. "Well, let's just say he's learning about consequences." "Copy that." Jax kept his voice low. "Shut it down. All of it already happening. Ghost Protocol Alpha. Everything wiped, no traces." "Thanks, Chun, for having my back. Always. Give my best to the little one." Jax deleted the message thread and powered down the secure phone. The ghost could rest now. His enemies were dealt with, his daughter was safe. "Daddy," Daisy called. "Watch this move." "I'm watching, princess." He smiled, fully present in this moment. The past was settled, justice served. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Explaining to Daisy why her mother was gone, rebuilding their life together, staying vigilant for any lingering threats. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, he was just a father watching his daughter, grateful for the second chance to keep her safe and show her a better way. The ghost had done his work. Now Jax could focus on what really mattered, being the father Daisy deserved and ensuring she grew up strong enough to never be a victim. His revenge was complete, served cold and merciless as his training demanded. His enemies would live with their choices, their betrayal earning them fates worse than death. The ghost could rest. Jax had a daughter to raise. Chapter 7. Aftermath of Chaos. News of Eleanor Kincaid's arrest dominated Oakhaven's local news cycle. The headline in the Montana Daily read, "Local socialite arrested for murder plot against husband." The article detailed her confession, the financial fraud, and her connection to the Russian mafia through her lover, Cyrus Thorne. In his office at the trucking company, Jax reviewed the surveillance feeds one last time before wiping them clean. His phone buzzed with a message from Chun. "FBI's closing in on Volkov's operation. They're requesting our files." "Send them," Jax replied. "But sanitize my involvement." He turned to the window, watching his trucks move through the yard. The business had become his legitimate front, But now he could focus on making it something more, something clean for Daisy's future. His computer pinged with an alert. Eleanor's preliminary hearing was scheduled for next week. The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded conversations, financial records, the confession she'd given under pressure at the cabin. The prosecutor was confident she'd serve at least 20 years. Boone's massive frame filled the doorway. "Got a minute?" Jax nodded, gesturing to the chair across his desk. "Daisy's asking questions," Boone said without preamble. "About Eleanor, about what happened at the cabin. What did you tell her?" "That her mother made bad choices and has to face consequences." Boone leaned forward. "But she's smart, Jax. She knows there's more." Jax's jaw tightened. "She's 8 years old. She's your daughter. And she's stronger than you think." A knock interrupted them. Jax's secretary. "Sir? Detective Morgan is here about Mrs. Kincaid's case." The detective was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s. She'd been working Eleanor's case since the arrest. "Mr. Kincaid," she began, "we need to discuss your wife's claims about your military background." "My records are classified," Jax replied flatly. "That won't change. Several of her co-conspirators have vanished, including Mr. Thorne. I've been running my business, detective. Ask anyone." She studied him for a long moment. "The Russian mobsters who had Mr. Thorne in custody? They were found dead at an airfield. Professional hits, all of them. Sounds like their business is dangerous." "Very." She stood. "For the record, Mr. Kincaid, I know exactly what you are. The ghost isn't as much of a secret as you think. Then you know what happens to people who threaten my family." She nodded slowly. "The case against your wife is solid. She'll go away for a long time. Just keep the body count down." After she left, Boone whistled low. "She's got brass ones. She's good at her job." Jax checked his watch. Time to pick up Daisy from school. The elementary school was buzzing with activity. Daisy sat alone on a bench, her backpack clutched tight. Other parents whispered and stared. News traveled fast in small towns. She brightened when she saw him. "Daddy!" He hugged her close, breathing in her innocent scent. "Good day at school, princess?" Mrs. Thompson asked about Mom. Her voice was small. "I said she went away." "That's right." Jax led her to his truck. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and have to go away to think about them. Like when you go away for work." "No, princess. Different kind of away." He helped her buckle in. "Your mom, she did some bad things. She has to face consequences. Because she tried to hurt you?" Jax's hands froze on the steering wheel. "Who told you that?" "I heard her talking to Mr. Thorne. They thought I was sleeping." Her bottom lip trembled. "She said you had to go away forever." Rage burned in Jax's chest, but he kept his voice gentle. "You're safe now. That's what matters. Are you really a ghost, Daddy?" He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "What makes you ask that?" "Mom called you that when she was mad. She said you weren't just a truck driver." "I used to have a different job," he said carefully. "One where I helped stop bad people. Some people call me Ghost then. Like a superhero?" A bitter smile touched his lips. "Not exactly, princess." At home, Boone had dinner waiting. He'd practically moved in since Eleanor's arrest, helping maintain normalcy for Daisy. "Spaghetti and meatballs." Daisy raced to wash her hands. "Any word on Thorne?" Boone asked quietly. "FSB found parts of him in Moscow." Jax's voice was cold. Young Volkov sent a message. "And the rest of the organization?" "Scattered. The FBI's mopping up what's left." Boone nodded approvingly. "The ghost's work is done. The ghost can rest." Jax watched Daisy return to the kitchen. "I've got more important things now." Later that night, after Daisy was asleep, Jax received one final message from Chun. Package delivered to designated coordinates. Ghost protocol complete. He drove out to the storage unit alone. Inside, a black duffel bag contained the last traces of his former life. Weapons, documents, surveillance gear. He'd keep the skills, the training, the ruthless efficiency that had served him so well. But the ghost's tools could rest. His phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor's lawyer requesting a meeting. He deleted it without responding. She'd made her choice, chosen money over family, betrayal over loyalty. Now she could live with the consequences. The ghost had taught them all, why he'd earned his reputation, why even hardened operators spoke his name in whispers. But Daisy needed her father more than the world needed the ghost. He locked the storage unit and drove home to his daughter. Chapter 8. The Ghost's New Dawn. 6 months after Eleanor's arrest, Jack stood in his expanded office, reviewing plans for the trucking company's new warehouse. The business was growing, legitimately this time, built on hard work rather than violence. The construction crew can start next week, his operations manager reported. Should add 30% to our capacity. Good. Jack signed the approval forms. And the new safety protocols? Implemented across the fleet. Drivers are complaining about the extra checks, but safety isn't negotiable. Jack's tone ended the discussion. His secretary buzzed in. Sir, your daughter's school is on line 1. Daisy had been struggling since Eleanor's conviction. Despite therapy and Jax's constant presence, the betrayal had left marks. Mr. Kincaid? The principal sounded concerned. There was an incident. Daisy's fine, but we need you to come in. He found Daisy sitting outside the principal's office, knuckles scraped raw. What happened, princess? She looked up, eyes fierce. Tommy said Mom was a criminal who tried to kill you. So I hit him. Pride and concern warred in Jax's chest. We don't solve problems with violence. You did. Her voice was quiet, but firm. With Mr. Thorne, the principal cleared her throat behind them. Jax turned, keeping his face neutral. Mr. Kincaid, while we understand Daisy's situation, we can't condone fighting. It won't happen again. He squeezed Daisy's shoulder. Will it? She shook her head, but her eyes still blazed with that familiar determination. His determination. Later, at the boxing gym Boone had set up in their garage, Jax watched his daughter attack the punching bag with focused fury. Channel it, he instructed. Control the rage. Don't let it control you. Like you did. She threw another combination. When Mom betrayed you? Who told you about that? I heard Uncle Boone talking. She stopped punching, faced him directly. He said you were cold, calculating. That you destroyed them without mercy. Jax considered his words carefully. When someone threatens your family, you handle it. But there are right ways and wrong ways. Is that why you didn't kill them? Mom and Mr. Thorne? Death is quick, he said softly. Some people deserve to live with what they've done. She nodded, understanding beyond her years. Teach me to be strong like you, Daddy. Not weak like her. He showed her how to throw a proper cross, his heart aching and swelling simultaneously. She was so much like him. The determination, the focus, the unwillingness to accept betrayal. That night, Boone brought over steaks and news from his contacts. Eleanor's appealing her sentence, he reported while Daisy was upstairs with her homework. Let her try. Jax sipped his whiskey. The evidence is solid. She's claiming coercion. Says you threatened her. The prosecutor has her recorded confession. And Cyrus's body just turned up in Moscow. Boone raised an eyebrow. Volkov's handiwork? The younger one's proving just as ruthless as his father. Jax's smile was cold. Sent me proof of delivery, so to speak. The ghost's reputation stays intact. The ghost is retired. Jax set down his glass. I'm just a trucking company owner now. A father. A father who can still disappear problem people. If necessary. Jax's eyes hardened. No one threatens my family again. Upstairs, Daisy's voice drifted down. She was reading aloud, practicing for school. The simple domesticity of it struck Jax hard. This was what he'd protected, what he'd killed for. She's adapting, Boone observed. Getting stronger. She's a survivor. Pride colored Jax's voice. Like her father. The other kids still giving her trouble? Not after today. Jax grinned slightly. She put Tommy Wilson on his back. Perfect form, too. Boone laughed. That's my girl. The ghost's daughter indeed. She'll be better than the ghost, Jax said softly. Stronger, smarter, but without the darkness. You sure about that? Boone gestured upstairs. She's got your fire, brother. Your ruthlessness when crossed. Then I'll teach her to control it. To use it right. Later, tucking Daisy into bed, Jax saw that familiar steel in her eyes. Daddy? Will Mom ever come back? No, princess. She made her choice. Good. She hugged her stuffed rabbit tight. I like it better with just us. You, me, and Uncle Boone. He kissed her forehead, throat tight. Me too, baby. Me too. Chapter 9. Echoes of the Past. 3 years passed. Daisy grew into a confident 11-year-old, excelling in school and the martial arts classes Jax enrolled her in. The trucking company prospered, expanding across 3 states. The ghost legend faded to whispers in dark corners of the intelligence community. Occasionally, Chun would send updates about Eleanor, still in prison, appeals denied, or the Volkov organization, thriving under the sun's brutal leadership, but Jax filed them away unread. Until one morning when his secure phone buzzed, a code he hadn't seen in years. Ghost. Chin's voice was urgent. We have a situation. I'm retired. It's about Daisy. Jax's blood froze. Talk. Eleanor made a deal with the feds, trading information about certain operations, including Kiev. She doesn't know anything about Kiev. She knows enough to point them in the right direction. And her lawyer's pushing for reduced sentence, supervised visits with Daisy. The pen in Jax's hand snapped. No, there's more. Young Volkov's been asking questions. About you, about Daisy. He blames me for his father. With reason. Chun paused. Ghost, this isn't over. Jax stood, moving to the window. In the parking lot, Daisy was showing Boone a new kick she learned in class. She moved with her father's grace. Her mother's beauty turned to. Send me everything, he ordered. Files, surveillance, all of it. Already done. Ghost protocol reactivated? No. Jax watched his daughter execute a perfect roundhouse kick. This isn't the ghost. This is a father protecting his child. He ended the call as Daisy and Boone came inside. Did you see? She asked excitedly. Sensei says I'm ready for the advanced class. That's great, princess. He hugged her close, breathing in her familiar scent. Why don't you go get cleaned up for dinner? After she ran upstairs, Boone's expression turned serious. I know that look. What's wrong? Eleanor's making moves. And Volkov's son is asking questions. Christ. Boone ran a hand over his face. What's the play? I handle it. Jax's voice was steel. Quietly. Finally. The ghost. No. The ghost killed for country, for duty. This is different. A father's vengeance. A father's protection. Jax checked his watch. Call Chun. Tell him to activate Contingency Protocol Sierra. The nuclear option? You sure? Eleanor threatened my daughter. Volkov threatened my family. His eyes were cold. No more half measures. That night, after Daisy was asleep, Jax made 2 calls. The first ensured Eleanor's deal would disappear, along with any chance of reduced sentence or visitation. The second put in motion events that would keep young Volkov too busy with internal problems to pursue old vendettas. The next morning, he took Daisy to school, as usual. Daddy, she asked as they pulled up, are you okay? You seem worried. He smiled, genuine warmth, replacing the cold calculation of the night before. I'm fine, princess. Just business stuff. Ghost stuff? No. He touched her cheek gently. Father stuff. The most important job I have. She hugged him tight. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, princess. He watched her run inside, confident and strong. She'd never know about the choices made in darkness, the blood spilled to keep her safe. She'd never see the ghost's ruthless efficiency deployed one final time to protect her future. She'd only know her father's love, as fierce and uncompromising as the man himself. The ghost was truly gone now, laid to rest in the name of something far more important than vengeance or duty. A father's love, a daughter's future, a new dawn, built on the ashes of the past, but reaching towards something brighter. Jax drove to his office, ready to face whatever came. Not as the ghost, not as the ruthless operative who'd earned whispered respect in shadow wars. Just a father, the most dangerous thing he'd ever been. Epilogue, 10 years later. The Montana sun glinted off Kincaid Transport's new corporate headquarters in downtown Oak Haven. The once small trucking company had grown into a transportation empire spanning 12 states, with over 500 trucks and 2,000 employees. In his top-floor office, Jericho Jax, Kincaid reviewed quarterly reports while monitoring a different kind of intelligence on his secure tablet. At 52, his hair had traces of gray, but his body remained combat-ready, his mind razor-sharp. Old habits died hard. Uncle Boone's here, his assistant announced through the intercom. Jax minimized the surveillance feeds as Boone's massive frame filled the doorway. Time had weathered the former operative, but hadn't diminished his presence. She passed, Boone announced without preamble. Jax allowed himself a small smile. Top of her class? Naturally. Youngest graduate in Quantico's history. Boone settled into a reinforced chair. They're already talking about fast-tracking her to special operations. Daisy Kincaid, now 18, had followed neither her mother's path of social climbing nor her father's shadow career. Instead, she'd forged her own way, graduating high school at 16, completing her criminal justice degree in 2 years, and entering the FBI Academy with scores that broke records. Should send an update, Boone continued. Eleanor's latest appeal was denied. She still got 12 years minimum. Jax nodded. His ex-wife had spent the last decade trying to reduce her 25-year sentence, but the evidence remained ironclad. The ghost's work was thorough. And young Volkov? Still running his operation in Moscow, but he's got other concerns now. That information you leaked about his connection to certain political figures. Boone grinned. Let's just say he's too busy staying alive to worry about old vendettas. The intercom buzzed again. Sir, your daughter's on line 1. Jax picked up the phone, putting it on speaker. Congratulations, Agent Kincaid. Thanks, Dad. Daisy's voice was confident, professional. Though it's still just trainee Kincaid for a few more weeks. Not for long, Boone called out. Your scores are already legendary at the Bureau. Uncle Boone, you're supposed to keep that quiet. But they could hear her pride. Dad, are you still coming to graduation? Wouldn't miss it. Jax checked his calendar. The company jet's already booked. The other trainees still can't believe my dad's just a trucking company owner. They could hear her smirk. If they only knew. And they never will, Jax said firmly. The ghost stays buried. I know, Dad. Besides, I'm making my own name now. After the call ended, Boone studied his old friend. She's something else, Jax. You did good with her. She did good with herself. Jax stood, moving to the window. Despite everything, his secure phone buzzed. Chin's weekly update. Eleanor had attempted to send another letter to Daisy, which had been intercepted as usual. The younger Volkov's power in Moscow was crumbling, thanks to carefully leaked intelligence. And most importantly, no one had connected rising FBI star Daisy Kincaid with the legendary operative known as the Ghost. The company's annual charity gala is next week, Boone mentioned. The one benefiting at-risk youth? Jax nodded. After Eleanor's arrest, he'd channeled significant resources into helping children from broken homes. The Kincaid Foundation now supported dozens of programs across the country. Daisy wants to speak at it, Boone continued. Share her story. Carefully edited, of course. She's old enough to make that call. Jax returned to his desk. She understands operational security better than most agents twice her age. A notification popped up on his screen, motion sensors triggered at one of his outlying properties. He pulled up the feed to see federal agents executing a search warrant at the old cabin where Eleanor's confession had been recorded. Cold case unit, Boone observed, reading over his shoulder. Still trying to piece together what happened to Cyrus Thorne? They won't find anything. Jax's voice held absolute certainty. The ghost doesn't leave traces. No. But Daisy might find something when she gets assigned to the FBI's organized crime unit. Boone raised an eyebrow. You know that's where she's heading. She'll find exactly what the evidence shows. A corrupt businessman who crossed the Russian mob and paid the price. Jax's tone ended that line of discussion. His computer pinged with another alert. Facial recognition had picked up Eleanor in the prison yard during her daily exercise period. 10 years had not been kind to her. The beautiful socialite was gone, replaced by a bitter woman who'd lost everything to her own greed. Still monitoring her? Boone asked quietly. Always. Jax closed the feed. She threatened my family once. Never again. A knock at the door interrupted them. Jax's head of security. Sir? The advance team has finished sweeping Quantico for the graduation ceremony. All clear. Good. Jax had insisted on his own security assessment. Trust only going so far. Maintain surveillance until we leave. After the man left, Boone chuckled. Some things never change. Can't afford to let them. Jax pulled up another set of files. Intelligence reports from his network of former operators. Threats don't end just because the ghost retired. The ghost retired. The father never will. Boone stood. Speaking of which, Daisy's favorite pizza place in D.C. is still open. Thought we could surprise her after graduation. Jax smiled slightly. Already made reservations. Their conversation was interrupted by another call. Chun, this time with an urgent update. Ghost. The old code name came naturally in crisis. We have movement in Moscow. Young Volkov's people found one of our old dead drops. They're asking questions about Kiev. Handle it. Jax's voice was ice. Permanently. Already in motion. But Ghost, they might trace it back. To Daisy. No, they won't. Jax's tone could have frozen hell. Because there won't be anyone left to trace it. After ending the call, he turned to Boone. Feel like a trip to Moscow? For Daisy? Always. Boone cracked his knuckles. The ghost's last dance? No. A father protecting his daughter. Jax checked his watch. Have the jet ready in an hour. That evening, before departing, Jax called Daisy one last time. Just checking in before a business trip, he said casually. Proud of you, princess? Thanks, Dad. She paused. Be careful in Moscow. His breath caught. What makes you think, Dad? Her voice held amusement. I'm about to be an FBI agent, remember? I can connect dots. Daisy, it's okay. I know why you do what you do. Why you've always done it. Her voice softened. Love you, Dad. Love you too, princess. After hanging up, Jack stared at the phone for a long moment. His daughter had grown into everything he'd hoped. Strong, capable, but with a moral compass he'd never possessed. She understood his darkness, but chose the light. Ready? Boone asked from the doorway. Jax nodded, checking his weapons one last time. The ghost might be retired, but a father's work was never done. Young Volkov would learn why some legends should stay buried, why some vengeances should be left unpursued. Above all, he'd learn why the ghost had earned his reputation, not just as an operator, but as a father who would burn the world to protect his child. The next generation. 2 months after Quantico graduation, Daisy Kincaid sat at her desk in the FBI's Organized Crime Unit, reviewing case files. Her colleagues had initially dismissed her as too young, too inexperienced, until she'd broken open a human trafficking ring in her first month. Now they watched her with a mix of respect and wariness. Something about the young agent's intensity, her ability to think 3 moves ahead, reminded them of stories they'd heard about a legendary operative called the Ghost. Agent Kincaid? Her supervisor approached. Got something interesting. Cold case from Montana, about 10 years back. Russian mob connections. Thought you might have insight, being from the area. Daisy accepted the file, already knowing what she'd find. The Cyrus Thorne disappearance, the collapse of the Volkov organization in Moscow, her mother's conviction, all pieces of a puzzle only she could see completely. I'll look into it, she said professionally. After work, she drove to her apartment in her FBI-issued vehicle. Her father had offered to buy her something flashier, but she'd insisted on making her own way. Her secure phone, a gift from Uncle Chun, buzzed with an encrypted message. Moscow situation resolved. Your father sends his love. She smiled slightly, deleting the message. The ghost might be retired, but Jericho Kincaid would never stop protecting his family. She'd made peace with that years ago. Her regular phone rang. Boone. Hey kiddo, up for some training this weekend? Always. She'd never stopped practicing the combat skills they'd taught her. Dad coming? Should be back from his business trip by then. They both knew what that meant. The recent news about certain Russian criminals meeting unfortunate ends hadn't surprised either of them. How's he really doing, Uncle Boone? Good. Focused on the company, the foundation. Keeping busy. Boone paused. Still monitors the prison feeds, though. Daisy's jaw tightened. Eleanor's latest appeal had included another attempt to contact her, claiming maternal rights. As if plotting to murder her father gave her any right to motherhood. She can't hurt us anymore, Daisy said firmly. Dad made sure of that. That he did. Boone's voice held pride. You're a lot like him, you know. The good parts, and the dangerous ones? Those too. But you use them better than he did. Legally. After hanging up, Daisy reviewed her latest case files. Human traffickers, drug cartels, organized crime. She hunted them all with her father's ruthless efficiency, but through official channels. Her computer pinged with an alert. One of her unofficial searches had found something. A former associate of Cyrus Thorne had surfaced in Canada, making noise about writing a book. She considered calling her father, then decided against it. She could handle this herself, legally but firmly. The ghost's daughter had her own methods now. Opening her FBI laptop, she began composing a report linking the would-be author to several open investigations. By morning, he'd be too busy dealing with federal subpoenas to write anything. Her father had taught her well. There were many ways to fight darkness. She'd chosen to do it in the light. Full circle. In his Montana home office, Jax reviewed the latest intelligence from his network. The Moscow situation was permanently resolved. The last traces of young Volkov's organization scattered to the winds. No one would threaten Daisy through that channel again. His security feeds showed Boone in the gym, preparing for their weekend training session with Daisy. The facility had been upgraded over the years, but still contained that old punching bag where his daughter had first learned to channel her anger into strength. The ghost's skills, tempered by a father's love, passed down to a new generation. But Daisy had taken those lessons and forged her own path, using them to protect others through legitimate means. A notification popped up, Eleanor's latest psychiatric evaluation from prison. She'd finally stopped trying to contact Daisy, accepting that some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. Jax closed the file without reading it. The past was settled. His focus remained where it had always been, protecting his family's future. His phone buzzed with a text from Daisy. Got a big case. Might need some unofficial insight. Dinner soon? He smiled slightly. The ghost might be retired, but a father's work never ended. And he wouldn't have it any other way. Name the time and place, princess, he replied. I'm always here for you. In the end, that was his true legacy. Not the ghost's fearsome reputation, not the business empire he'd built, but the daughter he'd raised, strong, principled, and unafraid of either darkness or light. The ghost could rest. Jericho Kincaid, father and protector, lived on. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.